And I'll just let the members in as they come in. Okay, you're live.
All right, thank you. Call to order this meeting. This meeting will be held in a virtual manner where committee members, staff, and public can participate electronically. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available on the township website. Notice is hereby provided under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act. All information contained is considered part of the public record. Item 2, confirmation of the agenda. Recommendation of the agenda of February 3rd, 2025 Committee of Adjustment meeting be confirmed as circulated. Are there any changes or adjustments, clerk?
No, there isn't.
Okay. Mover, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Lindsay, seconded by Ms. Hajnik. All in favor?
Carried.
Carried, thank you. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or the general nature thereof? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on. Adoption of minutes. Adoption of the minutes of the January 6, 2025 Committee of Adjustment meeting. Recommendation is that the minutes of the January 6, 2025 Committee of Adjustment meeting be adopted as circulated. Are there any errors or omissions noted? Seeing and hearing none, I have a mover, please.
So
Moved by
moved.
Councillor Willis, second by Mr. Lindsay. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Public meeting. No. Okay. We still good, Ann?
Through the chair, I just got a direct message from Ann saying that she will be right back, and then that is when the recording stopped. So
Are we going to wait then for a minute, or are we going to proceed with the public meeting?
I might suggest for those watching at home that we wait until the clerk returns so we can ensure that it is being live streamed and recorded.
Fair enough.
Thank you. My apologies. Awkward silence. I might suggest I have the option of recording. So if it's going to be broken up no matter what, I could record and then send it to Ann for it to be uploaded because it's going to have to be recorded twice anyway.
If I could ask, are you able to let people in and out and see people who are attending right now? Oh, there she is. Okay, Madam Clerk.
I'm sorry about that. I was trying to get the mayor online and then I lost my connection. Please proceed. I'm sorry.
All right. Proceeding with the public meeting, item 5.1, D10-20-2024 and D10-21-2024 and the state law 216 Plan 91 consent. I welcome staff, and do you have any other information you wish to share?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll be doing quick presentations for this consent applications. And just so as you know, given the interconnected nature of this consent applications, I will be presenting items number 5.1 and 5.2 on the agenda together. It should also be noted that item 5.2 was supposed to be initially processed through the delegated authority bylaw. However, we received a dispute for the application, and as per the delegated authority bylaw, a decision can now only be made by the Committee of Adjustment. As such, staff are bringing forward the recommendation tonight with the conditions that we have circulated with the committee this morning. So getting on to this applications. So the purpose of the staff report. The purpose of this, the staff report under item number 5.1 is to recommend approval of consent to sever for the purposes of creating 2 new residential lots. And there are 2 concurrent consent applications for lot additions as well, which is item 5.2 on the agenda. Those applications have also been submitted by the applicant for the same property. So through the consent applications to create new lots on item 5.1, the intent is to sever part 5 and part 6 and to retain part 7 as it has been illustrated on the application sketch. And through the lot addition applications as a part of the agenda item 5.2, the intent is to add part 4 from the subject property to part 3 over adjacent property identified as block 34 on plan of subdivision 29M057, and to add part 8 from the subject property to part 9 over another block 31 on plan of subdivision plan 29M057. So the overall intent of this applications is to facilitate the creation of 8 separately conveyable parcels from 3 adjacent properties, as it has been illustrated on the application sketch. The proposed development follows 3 previously approved zoning bylaw amendment applications, which were necessary to have consistent and appropriate zoning across all 8 proposed parcels. Following the approval of this rezoning applications, the applicant has now submitted the required consent application and will also apply for a part lot lift application as a condition of this consent applications. This process will enable the land to be divided as shown on the application sketch to create 8 new separately conveyable parcels intended for the development of single detached residential units. Staff have reviewed these consent applications in accordance with the prescribed policies of the Planning Act, the provincial policy statement, the county and township official plan, and the township zoning bylaw. The applications have also been assessed through consultation with all relevant technical agencies and divisions with supportive comments received. Additionally, required technical studies have been conducted and reviewed with no objections raised. Based on this comprehensive review, staff is of the opinion that the proposed consent applications meet all applicable policy and regulatory requirements and thus recommend their approval. And lastly, as I mentioned before, staff has received 1 dispute over the weekend from a member of public, and it has been circulated to the committee for their review. Staff also provided justifications to the member of public via email and also recommended the member to attend the meeting. Should they have further questions or concerns for the committee to consider? Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we go forward, if I could ask the clerk, are we able to discuss both and vote separately, or do we have to discuss each one individually?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will let the planning team provide some advice on that. I think it's okay to discuss both items together because it's one applicant and it's 2 different, I guess, applications.
Mr. Griffin, do you have a comment on that?
Yes, thank you through the clerk or through the chair. we'd be happy to answer questions for both. What I might suggest is once we get to 5.2, as there is a different recommendation coming forward than what was on the agenda, that staff be given the opportunity and the clerk bring the recommendation up on the screen. But in terms of questions on the applications, we'd be happy to answer for either at this time.
Thank you. Members of the committee, are there any questions for staff? Provide clarification or anything? Mr. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank staff for a fairly comprehensive report on the application, but I would like to get a sense. I did visit the site and take a look at the subject property in relation to the existing dwelling units that are in the vicinity of this subject property. And I'm wondering if I'd like questions if I could ask at this point with respect to the overall community. Because as was pointed out in the submission from a member of the public, there seems to be an established area that's been there for a number of years, and then that has been over time. There's been additional new developments that have come in on Brennan Crescent that are more of a traditional or standard type of development that you would see today. So my first question to staff is that for the lots that exist on Battery Street, Bridge Street, Cross Street, and I guess the north side of Emma Street, were these lots originally developed on private services?
I think those are plans over subdivision, and requirement of subdivision should be for all the properties to be on municipal services.
Okay, well, what I'm trying to get at here is sort of the historical context, because these are larger lots, and generally when I see larger lots like this, that it supported at one time a well and septic tank system. Once municipal services gets introduced into the community, then you see the ability to be able to have a higher density development, which seems to be reflected on Brennan Street as services went in. I guess what I'm trying to get a handle on is sort of the change of the community over time, and the reason why the original lots on Cross Street, Emma Street, and Battery Street were larger. My guess is that at one time they were on private services and they switched over now to municipal services. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Griffin?
Can I just jump in just to clarify through the chair to committee member Lindsay? So a little bit of background, especially on the lots directly facing Emma Street. So Emma Street had just recently, until last year, did it have municipal services. So they were all those lots in that area were on what is called Plan 91, which was the original subdivision plan or plan for Odessa. It was whether Cross Street and Battery Street. Not 100% familiar of when they were serviced. However, I can confirm that the lots in this general area along Emma Street, they were created without municipal infrastructure. So your overall guess or estimation, in my opinion, would be correct, that the intent at the time these lots were created would have likely been on private services. However, Emma Street was never developed, as in recent years when development came forward, we had requirements within our official plan that it's in the urban area that it not be developed until municipal services come in. And now that there's municipal services, there's the policy to support further development along Emma Street.
Okay, so I think what it indicates to me, Mr. Griffith, is that the community has evolved over time, and the lot structure in the community has evolved over time with the introduction of municipal services, that thereby, because they're expensive to put these services in, it just follows that you would have smaller lot creation at that point. Okay, that's my first question. And Mr. Chair, if you will indulge me, I do have a second question or to staff. And again, I'm not arguing with the conclusions of the report. I'm just wondering why this method of dealing with this application is here before this committee of adjustment. When I look at the documents that were provided, I can see the original plans of subdivision were on this property. In other words, registered plan 29M57, registered plan number 91, and then 2957. So these lands were part of a subdivision plan at one time. So this begs the question then, these lands were part of a subdivision plan, even though it's fairly old. Why then did the municipality not consider a re-subdivision application on these properties in order to have a comprehensive review and circulation of this application, and then have council make the decision on this property instead of this committee? Not that I don't think the committee has the capacity to make the decision, it does, but is not a more appropriate way to have this matter dealt with is through a re-subdivision process. I know that's a lot to ask. I'm just wondering if staff has any comment on that.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, maybe I can try to answer, and James, as he can fill in the blanks. So, I think you referred to block 34 and 31, which are registered blocks over plan of subdivision 29M57. I think this got registered at the time when Mill Creek subdivision was being developed. So that's one part to it. But the major part is the central lot, which is lot 215, 216 on plan 91, which got consolidated at some point in time in the past. So the two blocks are blocks over subdivision, and the central lot is not a block over subdivision. And given the proposal to create 8 lots out of the 3 separate registered properties, or 3 separate legally registered or titled properties, we had to take lawyer's opinion, legal opinion. And based on the legal opinion, the best route was to create part 5, 6 through consent application, and retain part 7, and then to add part 4 and part 8 to the adjacent lots to west and east, and then to have part lot lift as a condition of those lot addition applications, so that once the part lot lift has happened, part 4 can merge with part 3, and then part 8 can merge with part 9. And in doing that, part 1, 2, 3, 4 combined, and part 8, 9 combined, and part 10 would be created through part lot lift applications, which further divides the subdivision block. And then, because the central lot is not a block over registered plan of subdivision, it has to go through the consent application.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if you can indulge me a little while longer. So the centerpiece, when I read the diagram, it says lot 215, lot 216, registered plan number 91. That's the registered plan of subdivision.
So
therefore, you have the ability, in my opinion, to be able to do a re-subdivision on those lands instead of having to go through lifting part lot control, merging parcels together, and then establishing lots in that fashion. I guess my concern is that when all this ends up in the land titles office, they may not accept it, because basically any prospective lot purchaser of this lot is going to have their lands described as part of a block on an 5R plan instead of a 4M plan. And as a result, it's difficult to have all the parts and descriptions deposited in land titles. I'm just wondering, again, is not the appropriate way to do it through a re-subdivision process. It's clear cut. You establish the lots through a 4M plan. I guess I'm concerned that down the road, this may have difficulty getting registered on title.
Maybe I through the
Yeah.
chair, if I can jump in and shed some light. So a little bit background. So the middle lot, although it says it's on a registered plan, that registered plan was deemed to be no longer a plan of subdivision. And so that's how those two lots, part of lot 216 and part of 215 have merged. So we're dealing with the middle lot, which is no longer in the registry's eyes, a block on a plan of subdivision. So we have that we have to deal with through the consent process. And then the two outer lots, albeit I wasn't here for this, and I don't know the exact background onto why it occurred, but those are two blocks that were created within the last 10 years on a recent plan of subdivision. So that's why the part lot control, with the intent that they would be, once services go through, that they'd be divided up through part lot control. However, in recent times, it took a little bit longer to get serviced, and it was then at that point the landowner became the owner of all three properties, but we couldn't merge them because we couldn't deem it no longer a plan of subdivision because it was within 8 years. So we were dealing with a few different situations. So because of that, we consulted our lawyer very early on. And this was in working with not only the municipal solicitor, but also the applicant solicitor. This was, albeit it may not seem as straightforward, but the most straightforward way to move it forward. And once it does go to the land registry office, we'll be dealing with the two outer lots are going through part lot control. So they will just be part 16 on plan 29R XXX on plan 29M, so that's sort of a normal part lot control process. And then these middle ones no longer will just be going through a very similar what would happen through the consent process. Because the middle lot was no longer a plan of subdivision, in the short answer, that is why we went this way instead of trying to merge them all together and go through the plan of subdivision way.
Okay, thank you for that explanation, Mr. Griffith. Now I have a better understanding, in the sense that it's the centerpiece was deemed to be, I guess, from a legal interpretation, no longer form part of a plan of subdivision. Therefore, you don't have the right then to, this is the only method you can do then. You could no longer can do a re-subdivision where you don't have a previous subdivision. So now I have a better understanding. Thank you for that. And those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Committee members, are there any other questions? Councillor Willis.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff. We did receive some feedback from a community member who was in favor of this application. If you could just walk us through the process. If this committee denies this application, what is the appeal process for the applicant?
So I think if the application is denied within 21 days, as per the Planning Act, the applicant can appeal on the Ontario Land Tribunal. And if that is done, then we'll have to start the actual appeal process and move forward with the required steps.
Continue, Councillor.
A follow-up question to that. So if it were to be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal, the township then would need to present evidence that it does not meet the official plan, the provincial policy statement, and our zoning bylaw. And in your research, did you find anything that would support that type of an argument were we to go to an appeal?
So any decision made by the Committee of Adjustment should fundamentally be in alignment with the planning legislation, be the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, official plan, zoning bylaw. The response to the second part of the question is, upon our review, although there has been a bit of change in the fabric as compared to the immediate lots on the MR Street, but those were created back in the time. But what has been proposed now in fundamental meets the low density residential designation as per the township official plan, which is 37.5 net hectare in low density residential area. So if that is met, there is no uneconomical, expenses related to the expansion of the services. We received, I think, supportive comments from Public Works, Engineering, as a part of the rezoning application, the grading plan, concept plan, everything, along with some other studies like soil categorization studies, hydrology studies. All those have been reviewed and comments provided, and only because of that rezoning took place. So I think with all that exercise, staff made sure that the proposal is in conformity with the current legislation. I think that answers the question.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from any members of the committee? Is the applicant in attendance, and do they wish to speak to the item?
Mr. Chair, I don't think the applicant is on the line with us.
If we can move down to the next part then. Is there anyone in the virtual audience that wishes to speak to this item?
Mr. Chair, there are no public participants on Zoom.
No one has their hand up. Okay.
Mr. Chair, quickly, I did have my hand up, but remember Willis's question. I think with respect to any referrals to the Ontario Land Tribunals, the general course of action is that staff has presented their position in the report, and in this case, with a recommendation. If this committee chooses to make a decision that is different from that recommendation, then the municipality will have to retain outside planning expertise to support the committee's position at the tribunal. Staff would likely be subpoenaed by the proponent in order to have the staff planner present evidence at that hearing. The municipality would have to retain outside consultants in order to represent a different position if one can be arrived at. So that's generally what happens when you go against the recommendation of staff.
You are correct on that, sir. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. We have a recommendation that the report from the Development Services Division dated February 3rd, 2025, read Emma Street lots 216, Plan 91, consent new lot be received, and the applications D10-020-2024 and D10-021-2024 affecting property described as lots 215, 216, Plan 91 in the geographic township of Ernestown, Loyalist Township in the county of Lennox and Addington be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in report number SR 2480. We have a mover for that.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Lindsay. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Mr. Preston. Mover, or any further comments? Mover, I missed something. Any further comments, Mr. Lindsay?
No, those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Preston? Any other members of the committee? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Please raise your hand. And that motion is passed. Move on to 5.2. That is D10-018-2024, block 34, 29M-057, and lots 215, 16, Plan 91. And D10-019-2024, block 31, 29M-057, lots 215-216, Plan 91. Emma Street consent lot addition. Staff, do we have anything to add to that, or was it covered in the previous section?
Just to add to James' statement, because the staff report it does not include the recommendations. If clerk can share the recommendations on the screen so that the committee can have a look at it. As I stated before, this needed to go through delegated bylaw, but because we had a dispute, as per the delegated bylaw, it needs to be approved by committee of adjustment.
Thank you. Oh, here we are.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, in fundamental, there are some minor changes because these are lot addition applications, and the previous one were the consent applications to create new lots. So, couple of conditions are different, but in fundamental, as we presented, the intent is to create 2 new lots and then do the lot addition so that the proposed development can go through.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering if could we put that back up in a bigger font? I had no idea, and maybe just highlight the changes for us. That's better.
Avinash, if you could highlight the changes, and I will just scroll down.
Just give me a minute. I'll just open the.
I'd also just like to clarify that there aren't any changes. As our recommendation was initially for the committee to receive. So they are a different set of conditions. So it's not that we're changing any conditions. We are just bringing these forward to the committee to approve, rather than if we were going to bring this report forward for information without the conditions, and it was going to go through staff delegated authority, being the Director of Development Services, approving these conditions tomorrow. But I will let Avinash sort of highlight the differences if you like, but I want to make that clear that there are no changes to any conditions.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Mr. Griffin. Is there anyone that needs any further on that? I don't see anyone. Any questions for staff? Again, I think we handled everything in the first bit. Madam Clerk, has anybody in attendance now from the applicant?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't see the applicant, their agent, or any members of the public.
Thank you. And has anybody, any other members of the public? Obviously, nobody is there. Any further questions from members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, I will give me 1 second here. The recommendation is that the report from the Development Services Division dated February 3rd, 2025, read Emma Street consent lot addition for the application D10-018-2024 affecting the properties block 34, 29M-057 and lots 215, 216, Plan 91, and D1-019-2024 affecting the properties described as block 31, 29M-057 and lots 215, 216, Plan 91 in the geographic township of Ernestown, Loyalist Township in the county of Lennox and Addington. I have to be received. And what do I need? recommended, be recommended? I think we need to add
Mr.
something there.
Chair, the motion, the recommendation is on the screen.
Okay,
and
thank you.
it's asking the committee to approve subject to the conditions listed on the document.
Okay, and what I say, on report dash, SR dash 2841 revised, or is it okay with 2841? If you did report, you did, I guess, give us the revised copy, right?
So as presented on the screen by the clerk.
Okay. Do I have a mover? Sorry, do I have any further questions? Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Mr. Lindsay, seconded by Mayor Hedadorn. Any further questions from the mover or the seconder? Any further questions from any members of the committee? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. And that is passed. That brings us to the end of the public meetings. Any decisions? We have none. Any other business?
No.
Upcoming meeting date, the next meeting of the committee will be March 3rd, 2025. And could I get someone to move that the meeting be adjourned at 6:35? Councillor Willis, seconded by Ms. Hasnick. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, folks. Nice haircut, Mr. Mayor. I had to wait till it was over. Okay, thanks, folks. Have a good evening.
At least he
Thanks
has
for your
hair
help, Jim. Take care.
at least
Have a
he
good
has
night, everyone.
hair to cut.